so much for being with us. You're with the Economic Times, and I'm Ashutosh Sinha. Today, it's time to talk about the retail sector. It's one of those sectors where the change has been dramatic, sometimes too dramatic for the liking of the industry as well. And we're talking the last about 2 years or so. The sector has seen sweeping changes because of companies going back to their design board to reimagine how they need to work. So today, welcome to the Economic Times Leadership Dialogues on Workplace Transformation, presented by Google Workspace. We have been engaging in a number of conversations on the changing workplace, and this is one more in that series. So let me first explain why it's so critical for the businesses, the retail businesses of tomorrow. Retail operations, if you remember, have been shut down in large parts of the world during the pandemic. While that was a black swan event, when at one point in time, nearly half the world was in a lockdown, economic activity has bounced back. Pretty much same in India as well. And the IAP numbers, which come out every month in India, that tells you the story as well if you've been tracking that. So COVID-19 has proved to be one of the biggest catalysts of transformation for the industry, and for more and more now employees are now able to work independently, independent of a specific location as well. That adds to a little bit of a challenge. So that has been the big picture. And how do companies look at working together, collaborating, continuing their work, and of course, this hybrid model of working, that also now comes into the picture. To talk about the transformation that is happening in the retail sector, we have some leading voices from the industry joining us. So let me welcome Sadashiv Nayak. He's the CEO of Future Retail. Thank you, Sadashiv, for joining us. Ravi Hudda, welcome. He's the Chief Digital Officer of the lifestyle business at Raymond. Puneet Mansukhani, partner KPMG India. Welcome, Puneet. Akash Chauhan, Vice President and Head of HR. Last Mile Delivery Operations and Customer Success for Urban Ladder. Akash, welcome. And Dragana Beara, APAC Head of Customer Engineering at Google Workspace. Dragana, welcome as well. And thank you indeed, everyone, for joining us. Let me first request Puneet Mansukhani, partner at KPMG in India, to set the context with the broad picture. Puneet.
Thanks, Ashu. As you rightly started off, the pandemic has brought in a lot of changes to the world. The way we look at these sectors transforming, and I'm talking about sectors across, whether it is retail, hospitality, education, for that matter. It's a completely new way of looking at things. Work from home, and if I may add, work at leisure, is something which was not thought of completely. And we had a couple of friends in the industry earlier up who used to say that I'm working from home and used to envy like anything, right? And things have completely transformed, completely changed. We have seen this happen ourselves. And if I look at the retail sector now, it's been predominantly, we've heard this in the past that the consumer is the king. And post the pandemic has hit in the market, the consumer actually is the king, right? So it's the consumer who decides where to talk to a brand, how to talk to a brand, which platform to operate on, and it goes on, right? And the most important thing is that the consumer is loving it. So it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. The hybrid atmosphere is pretty much here to stay. And it is extremely important for the larger brands to engage with the customer in the way and in the format the consumer wants it, right? So it's not something which will be here for a while and we'll go back to the regular ways of working. I think the hybrid way is here, is going to stay along, and rather is inching and taking that pie from the traditional ways of working. Which makes me to feel that adaptation, acceptance, and catch up, if I talk about traditional retail, is something which is being talked about are the flavors of conversations, and that's where I feel we will have to move towards. I mean, the problems in hand, if I may say so, with the retailers is that way to invest, how to
Mm.
talk to the consumer, and whether the investment strategy which we are trying to make today is in line to make sure that the consumer connects back with us. So you've got a whole lot of things like an AR, VR, AI, IoT, social media, and the consumer actually wants you to be there everywhere. Now, whether we start investing in all of these areas together or we take it one after the other is something which we need to really think about. You have on the other side, you've got the DNVBs, those digital native operators, who are now using a lot of platforms by bringing in their products into the limelight, and they're becoming threats. They're clearly becoming threats with the large brands, and we have to bring out a potential way of working for all these brands to work in a cohesive manner and move up the ladder. So I'll kind of park it up over here, Ashu, and look at others people to respond and take things forward from here.
Very interesting. Thanks, Puneet. So very interesting the way you've put it. Consumers the king. Some would also say that the employee is the king, given the way things are working today. So Sadashiv, since you run one of the larger retail and pretty complex operation there, I'd like to understand. Now, Puneet referred to the consumer, and I suggested that the employee is also the king. So in a situation like that, how can companies leverage the situation, leverage technology, leverage other options to run an operation which is sharp and smart and can manage to keep up to the demands of the situation?
Sure. So I think I have the fortune to work with people whom I say come from very humble backgrounds in India. And I was discussing with you how people come from various kind of backgrounds. Now you said sharp, and what's the other word you use, Ashu?
Sharp and smart.
Smart, sharp and smart. I would add a third word, which is simple. And I think when I go down to my stores and speak to the people, they represent a huge dose of simplicity to me. And then when I reflect back, and frankly, maybe at a later time, in the day, I'm going to talk about our journey into Omnichannel, and what we had imagined sitting here in our offices and what really happened on the floor. One thing was very clear: it was not people which was a bottleneck. The people were extremely simple. People were adaptable. They've come from very, very humble backgrounds, and they were willing to change. What possibly was causing friction was our ability to kind of look at a scenario where there's a metaverse of both physical and online retail. The people were there to adapt. So my take to you is that sharp and smart, I think that as retailers is now hygiene. I would rather leverage on simplicity of people. So to give an example and make it real for you, I think when the lockdown happened, we run a program for people with disabilities. Around 150 of our stores are designed for 14 disabilities. And the lockdown, first thing it challenges, what do you do now? Because the whole store experience was designed for a disability, and now you are not available. And the same held true for senior citizens, whom we call young elders in our office, in our organization. So young elders could no longer come to your store. They were the first, they were possibly the most protected set of cohorts who were staying at home. So the ideas to serve them did not come from either me, my team, or technology. I think the ideas came from the front, where they said, listen, people want to order on the app. We had an app running, but there were many young elders or senior citizens who wanted to order on messaging. And they use various kind of messaging, which you would be familiar with, and they messaged to us, and we were able to convert their orders from text to numerical orders and service. And now this idea, slightly cumbersome, and I'm sure there are people in this forum who will help us possibly make it easier to go to convert random text to data. But I think what this idea of saying, let's serve the customers, I'm almost to anecdotally say, if you have to give 8 days of care instead of 7 days a week, how do you kind of really go about? I think that our teams really built in the idea of simplicity. The headline is for being smart and strong, sharp. I think people are extremely simple, and they bring in simplicity. At least the teams which I work with. I think what we really need to do is imagine a different universe and make them party to it. So I would really park it here. and then later on take you through my journey of omni-channel for the brand.
Sure. So Ravi, for an iconic brand like Raymond's, uh, people were always used to coming to the store and going about, their part of purchase of the clothing and, some of the other work if they needed tailoring and other help. What, how did you manage through this? And give us the experience. How did it change post COVID, post March 2020, if I may say so?
Sure. Thanks, Ashu. And I think very relevant. Like all of us were progressing in our journeys to be digital. I think what the pandemic did is actually put that on steroid. And we clearly had to find ways and adapt much faster to changing consumer behavior because of the environment and the situations around. Now, specifically when you look at Raymond, I mean, we have a huge legacy, 97 years of existence, 60 years in retailing. And there is a connect between consumers and all of us in the way the shopping behavior was there. However, that was getting challenged. And take, for example, our textile business. Clearly, the whole experience for consumers to probably come to a store and look at 100 shades and pick up what is relevant for them is the product journey, and then starts the service journey for making it to their fit, which is the custom tailoring that we do. So how do you do that in an environment where consumers are not today very upfront on coming to the store, especially when the pandemic was just easing out, but there was a demand. So I think collaboration tools clearly helped us. I mean, we take an example for, say, Google Meet, for us to do video calls with consumers, probably connecting them to what is available in the stores in the shades, and probably get them to understand, and then probably finding a way of, how do you take their measurements in a way which is non-touch, in a way taking safety protocols and still deliver the thing. The whole experience around this was actually bounded by, couple of things. So one is a shift in consumer behavior which was happening. The other is the whole processes that were designed within the organization has to be retweaked to make sure that we still go and deliver. And the third is the upliftment of the skill set or learning the new way of serving consumers. And now we are talking about somebody who's right at the front end, and it's not only about Bombay, Delhi, metro cities. It's much deeper, and go to the next level. It's about the tailors out there. However, people are moving to digitization, but there are multiple level of, capability building that needs to get done. And I think that's how we start, working into a way, a step by step. I think Sadashiv explained it beautifully. It's not just being about smart over there, sharp over there. It's about simplicity, and all of us are graduating from a point of view of learning technology or adopting technology in our personal space. How do you get to an office or work environment? How do you make sure, remote working becomes a way of life using tools and collaboration way, irrespective of where you are, but you are real time connected and passing on the processes and making sure that consumer delivery is still maintained. So I think some of these things became very, very active in terms of looking at the process reengineering or the supply chain digitization, as we call it. And I think that helped us a lot. And I think when we go to the topic, we'll talk about some of the stuff and changes which happened. But I think it's a 3-stage shift which was happening, because customers, the processes in the organizations, and the employee set itself, which were trying to upgrade collectively to maintain or improve the whole delivery experience. And that's been very exciting. I think it's become a way of life. Hybrid is here to stay, and I personally believe it's going to get much better as a way of working for organizations, not only standalone e-commerce companies or standalone offline companies. I think mixed way of working is becoming a new reality to way to you engage or influence the customers. I mean, that's been exciting for us.
Absolutely. The 3-stage change that you said is pretty much secular, if I may use the word. Akash, for you, how has it worked? You and your company, how has this change happened, the transformation of the workplace? How has it changed the processes for you?
So being a digitally native organization, I think being comfortable with technology was always at our core, right? Technology has always been a very, very, the problem that we're solving is fundamentally discovery, right? What the entire pandemic situation did is that now when you don't have the option of a physical touch point, the discovery aspect has gone up drastically, right? The thing that we are actually trying to solve for, right? Then today we believe that if a customer is coming to the store, right, and when that customer is fundamentally far more comfortable ordering their groceries or other stuff online without really having a touch point, is fundamentally that why does that customer even need to come to the store, right? Is it about trust? Is it about a certain amount of service experience that they have from coming to the store? Because let's understand, it is a discomfort, right? Unless it's an outing, it is a discomfort for somebody to come to the store when you can sit at your home and order, right? So that solving that problem, that why is that somebody needing to come to the store, is fundamentally at the core of our problem solving, right? And that their technology plays a huge amount of role. Something as similar as that, okay, if I'm exploring or if I'm discovering a particular set of products, right? And when I actually go out to the store, does the store team has that detail already available with them, and I am customizing my offering for that customer, and that fundamentally increases my conversion many times, right? So for a product category like ours, right, solving for the trust problem through technology is what is at the core of our growth. And that is what we have been trying to solve for. I think it will take a certain amount of time. I think all of us are grappling with the entire situation. But I think we believe that this entire last 2 years is a huge opportunity for us to be able to increase our conversion problems, move away only from discovery to increase our conversion problem, because the customer base has gotten far more comfortable taking that leap of faith, if you can call it, because our AIV is slightly higher. And order online. And of course, with that, your policies and processes that you use to service the customer, so that that person does not have any obstacle in placing those orders, needs to also evolve. So I think we look at it as a huge opportunity from leveraging it as a conversion lever.
Okay. Very interesting. So Dragana, I'd like to come to you. So how can all these processes effectively be restructured to drive better collaboration for any enterprise? And we're talking of the post-COVID world and the recovery of economic activity that is being seen.
Yeah, it's a big question, but there are many options, and I think part of the digitization and digital transformation is already taking care of a lot of that. And where I see communication and collaboration platforms playing in is, if you look at a lot of people in their digitization effort, really focused on unifying their business processes and systems, like ERP and CRM and all of that. But adding a plug into something like Google Workspace that brings the human element to that digitization makes this even more so powerful, because in a lot of situations, depending, what you're trying to monitor, you will get some form of an alert, which will then trigger an action item. So having an integrated capability to send that action to a specific person that needs to take action makes everything so much more smooth and trackable as well, because of course business benefits come out from monitoring your data, tracking, analyzing, and really finding ways to achieve those improvements. And so that's one way. Another way is better connecting your workforce around the world, because the world is also shrinking, and the whole concept of work has become completely decoupled from space and sometimes even time. So how do you achieve that asynchronous or real-time collaboration without, waiting for some people to send a file or to send you the right version of the file? So for example, in Google Workspace, we have all of our editors are accessible by whoever is. So if I have a document, I can actually say that the entire alphabet can access it, or I can limit it to specific individuals on my project. And anyone at any given point in time that's working with me has an opportunity to go in there and see what's the latest, to contribute to. We also have a thing called Spaces, where we now actually put together the communication and collaboration into one channel. So you can actually have your video opportunities, audio call opportunities, you can share your files, and all of that can come together in a smart canvas, where we again unify everything, and people can very easily and in a very structured and organized way come together, whether in real time or at the time that suits them, to get their work done. So that's kind of like more of a human aspect of how we can actually accelerate the business process.
Okay, so while the established brands are trying to reinvent their processes, Puneet, this is also a godsend opportunity for the digitally native brands. some of them absolute upstarts, if I may use the word, not just startups. They're trying to disrupt the market with their approach. So give us a sense of that opportunity that has been created. I would like to believe driven a lot by the tech possibilities.
Absolutely, Ashu. In fact, that's exactly where I was trying to bring the catch-up angle. All right. So because effectively, if you talk about the digital native brands, they know two things. One, they know their product very well, and they really want to work on their product, make sure that they are offering around that product, whether it is the apparel, footwear, or any kind of industry they're working in, is something which they can excel on. And then they know technology, and they want to make sure that technology works in their favor and allows them to grapple with the challenges of reach. Okay, so if they are able to work in tandem with these two things, and then you have these entire platform opportunities which are now coming up. So multiple tech organizations who are trying to bring in these platforms, which is helping the DNVBs to really operate. Incidentally, I was part of one of the events which was happening at MIT, and I was taking this course on digital transformation, and it's a big talk of conversation at this point in time, wherein these scalable platforms is something which is the area of investment, and they are not only allowing the DNVB to increase their reach, but they are also trying to figure out what sells with which brand. So if you are on a platform and there are multiple brands operating through your platform, the platform operator can see that the footwear and a socks company, though they may be completely disparate, are really selling well together. And they're able to bring in those collaborative methods of both these companies to work together. So as far as I'm concerned, the reach is phenomenal. The requirement is exceedingly phenomenal. It's all about you putting your thoughts together. And with those younger generations, entrepreneurs who are coming on table, I think there are a lot of unthought of things which are happening, and there are multiple sectors which are getting affected and will continue to get affected.
So Akash, being a digitally native brand, how has this situation multiplied? And if you could explain the human element and the tech element there, because ultimately, if the two can work together in a smart, synchronous way, you're really looking to multiply.
Absolutely. So I'll just explain the evolution of the organization, right? So for the longest period, we were actually only available online, right? So, and what we realized that, okay, it solves, like I said, it solves a problem for discovery, right? But India as a market, and I think world over is true, but probably India more so, right? The human element, right, plays a massive role in your ability to convert something, right? And it goes up drastically as the size of the as the price of the product keeps on going up, right? Because you need that trust. And unfortunately, I think we are still in the phase where absolute trust on the technology part of it over a period of time will happen. I think we are seeing that happen very rapidly, but at least at that point of time, it was an evolving situation, right? So, and that's the way we said, okay, it makes sense for us to be available physically as well. However, the difference that we wanted to create is that the concept of why do you need a retail store was the question that we are trying to answer. And if we are clear that the retail store that we need is a personalized experience, right? Now, for that personalized experience to come into picture, you need a lot of technology support for your frontline staff. And I like what Sadashiv said initially, that it needs to be simple, right? You can't have complicated answer when you're trying to scale a business. That how simply can you use technology to empower your frontline staff to be able to provide that personalized service to your customers and bring in that human touch that you need at that point of time, right? Over a period of time, and that went well for us. And now during the pandemic situation, we're seeing that again, now that what has changed fundamentally is the customer has now become far more comfortable with this entire online purchase, right? And now the question, the problem statement has changed. Okay, I have bridged that trust issue that I have. So now why do I need to come to the store, right? So then again comes to then it is 100% based on services. And when you're looking at services, right, you have to you need to take one step even further to personalize those services again. So again, we are back to the drawing board, that how do you leverage technology to personalize your services even more, right? Or even better, can you take some of those services to the doorstep of the customer? Right? Use technology to take that services to the doorstep of the customer, which I think is has been the case for the last year or so, at least in a lot of industry. So that's how the entire our evolution has been, and I think it has been in the works. And I don't know how the future will look like, but seems pretty interesting in terms of how technology, people, and products are coming together to serve the customer better.
Okay, we'd also like to know from you, Sadashiv, on the journey towards omnichannel, because for a lot of people, they've largely seen future retail as one of the stores, one of the the mega stores that typically the anchor tenants in some of the large malls.
Sure. So if you permit, I'm just going to read out a line from a favorite song of Beatles, Ashu.
Oh yes, oh yes.
It says, "What would you think if I sang out of tune? Would you stand up and walk out on me? Lend me your ears and I'll sing you a song, and I'll try not to sing out of key. Oh, I need a little help from my friends." So I think I just say this to my people because we were not perfect when we went our omnichannel journey. So if this song was really about three things: one, we were not perfect, and so admit it. And tell our customers and staff that we are as curious and imperfect as you. So I think that was the first submission, because we were a large chain of 90 hypermarkets and 90 fashion stores and 1,000 supermarkets trying to go omni. The advantage was, of course, we would light up inventory in so many cities in one go, and we would be able to kind of use many things to our advantage, which I'll come and share with you. But it was about admitting where we are, and we are saying that, if your home is imperfect, so am I, and so accept us for what we are, and we're going to make our best effort. Second is really, I'm going to listen to you, and that's why if I'm going to sing out of key, I'm going to listen to you. So I think listening, and that's why I think Dragana and her entire kitty of stuff comes in terms of how do we listen better and better. I'm sure Google is a pivotal player for that. And third really was, since you're blessing us with your business, we don't mind singing and dancing for you. So I think adding a little bit of fun there. So really four things stuck in our mind when we went out. We said we have stores, so let's turn the whole promise upside down and let's try and deliver every category in 2 hours. So now you hear about grocery coming in 15 minutes, 30 minutes, which I think is, I don't think you can beat the local grocer of India. We've been saluting him for so many years for doing that for so many years. But imagine now delivering an ironing board if you want in 2 hours. If you've forgotten to gift your spouse a shirt or a top, we'll deliver it in 2 hours. If you've forgotten to kind of, the school tomorrow and your child doesn't have notebooks, we'll deliver in 2 hours. I think that we made that as a pivotal promise, and we told our team saying, you're next in your vicinity. If you're in Darbhanga, you're servicing 5 kilometers of your catchment. Now you can service much more. If you're in Tirupur, then you're going to be in so much places. In Bharuch, you're in so many places. So use that to your advantage. We know we're imperfect, but your advantage is you can deliver so many categories in 2 hours. What is the other thing with the customers gave us? The customer gave us knowledge of what they want. I mean, they've been living with us, and I love the way Ravi mentioned it. I think we exactly know what they want. I mean, that Ashu eats a certain tur dal or a pulse. We know it. So how do we make sure that we kind of delight you with it? And we say that, we have got this and we got 3 other things for you. So we unleash the entire power of around 27 million customers' data, not to kind of scare them or burden them. But in a lockdown, we said, how do we construct meaningful packages for you? And that's what we did. Third, I think what really stayed on is, I think time turned out to be a large currency. I think the shoppers, and I'm sure Ravi will totally agree with me, I think they give us the gift of time. They used to give us the gift of time, that you will take out 2 hours or 3 hours of your time, come to our stores, park your car, walk up the stairs. And so the gift of time is something we rewarded. And personally, to me as a leader, that's been the most humbling thing, that if the customers give us money really to deliver goods, but frankly, they're giving us a gift of time, which is invaluable. So we said, let's try and create experiences which will give them back the gift of time. So right from and we've just kind of relaunched this whole thing again. Like I'm taking a anecdotal example, but frankly, they'll explain to you. Like we were one of the first retailers to do an hour of shopping for families who had an autistic child. Yeah, and we'd spend 1 hour every Tuesday for them to spend. And for an autistic child, if you're familiar, you can't do regular shopping. You have to dim your lights, you have to reduce your sound, you have to kind of make sure that there's not too much. You have to bear with the children screaming aloud. So I think we decided to bring that back again. This time back with technology. So to us, really, it was using the proximity to our advantage, and we delivered every category within 2 hours. We used the entire kind of data which we had and said, let's construct back meaningful packages back to you, especially when we are now deciding to either come to the store or order from home. And third, I think the humbling thing was recognizing there's a gift of time, and we said it's our ownership now to create experiences. I'm just sharing one of them with you on the quiet hour for autistic children, but there are many things which we brought back alive and said, if the customer in the COVID period is coming to our store, let's really worship the 2 hours he or she is bringing to our store and really make it stuff. So we use technology to cut down their time to wait. You could pre-book your time to do a cash till. You can do your shopping. You can pre-book your time saying 2 o'clock I'll be at your cash till. And we said, okay, 2 o'clock we'll keep the cash till free for you. So those are many experiences which we did using technology to make sure that we really respect the gift of time that a customer was giving to us.
Okay, technology having a human face. Dragana, would you say that?
Technology is always having a human face. I think actually that's why that show Black Mirror is called Mirror, because it shows you the dark side of us through technology. So it's really important for us to actually show the other side and really navigate how we are planning to use technology, because the fact that we can do something doesn't always mean we should be doing that. So it also goes into this whole discussion of how do we get efficiencies? How do we get people to be more productive? Do we replace people with automation? And again, in some cases, that will be great. In other cases, perhaps not optimal, because again, the customer, especially in retail, crave that human touch. As much as I like online shopping, and for example, I have to say I've been a slow adopter of online shopping, especially for clothing, but I have to give some of the, I don't want to mention brands, but some of the Western retailers have put in place some great intelligence. So for example, if I'm not sure about the size, they offer me an ability to put all the measurements, and then they will tell me the percent of people who return the item because of your composure bought, I don't know, this size. And so I will then, based on that insight, on knowing how much of specific size item was returned, I'll figure out what's going to fit me. And they even give you an option to say, are you like not just the basic measures, but they even give you like an image saying, do you look more like this or like that, which has really been helpful. But at the same time, if I want to do something really interesting and special, I will always actually head to the store, and I will want the feedback, maybe not even from the shopping plane, maybe from another shopper who's there, right? So many times you're in a change room, you come out and other ladies are like, oh, that looks great, or nah, don't do that. So that is something that it's going to take time for technology to replace. There's smart mirrors out there, so perhaps not as long. But there's just so much opportunity for us to use technology as a helper, not a replacer.
Puneet, you have a comment to add? You received a compliment like Dragana did, probably?
No, I just thought of sharing an experience. We were working with a pretty large, I'll say a watch brand, not in India, but overseas. And they wanted to make experiences from their existing customers. They were wanting that we have customers who are the known ones, the rich ones, and they wear the best brands of watches. And now we also want them to come back and do further shopping. Now, if you're ending up spending a couple of $100,000 on a watch, you would not be coming back for the next 5 years. But they want to make sure that you're back in the next 2 years. So what do? So they wanted to build a platform wherein you can sell your existing watch, okay, and use a lot of AI ML by doing so. So you can actually three-dimensionally project the watch as a consumer. So I may end up buying that watch and I will have a story associated to it. So I can talk about Ashu using the best branded watch, and now I am a potential consumer of the same watch. You can share your growth story. You bought this watch when you were X and now you're trying to sell it when you are Y. So you've transformed your journey from X to Y. And now I am listening to that journey of yours. I'm kind of getting excited about the way you have grown, and possibly that watch has actually helped you made grow from X to Y. So why can't it be a manner wherein I possess that watch? And that's how the connect is starting. And maybe we did something very beautiful, if I may talk about a hypermarket, supermarket opportunity, wherein, especially during the pandemic, again, with one of these overseas accounts, the store was operational, but then we had certain challenges around the way, you were interacting with the consumer. So the app, which was being used by the supermarket format, was also having recipes. Okay, so they said, instead of we looking at just a consumer walking in and sharing their experience, we'll possibly give them recipes. So if you're trying to make some chicken dish, you have all the ingredients of what will take to make that chicken, and you can populate the store on your mobile app, and it will tell you where all the products are kept. So you just start picking them and putting them in your cart, and you see you're now ready to start cooking, and you go check out, go back home and start cooking. So it's a different kind of an experience, and it is so happening because this problem, if I may so say, is an opportunity wherein it will coexist, right? So people will keep buying from home, people will keep going into the stores. So if the number of walk-ins in the stores are less, but if you are able to give them specialized, focused services, I think the ticket size and the volumes and the wallet share is likely to increase.
Dragana, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I just want to add, I love that. And the truth is the stories. Humanity evolved on stories, passing knowledge to each other through stories. So we're genetically conditioned to respond much more positively to something that's very imaginative and inspirational, and it has a plot than just basic information. So getting people into that story experience and giving them a chance to share their story with others is definitely a great advantage, not just on the consumer side, but even in your organization, where you enable people to share their experiences and to collaborate and to get opinions and to vote for stuff and to, just taking down some of those artificial barriers that have been developed in traditional workplaces. And while one point that Ravi made earlier, and I 100% agrees, it has to be simple. It has to be easy to use. It has to be simple. When you make it very complicated, people don't adopt and they just abandon an idea regardless of how great it is.
Yeah, so Sadashiv, since you've raised the hand as well, 27 million customers, you would be inundated with stories.
Yeah, so I was excited about what Dragana just mentioned, and I thought I'll tell you a story about what we are discovering now. Every week in our stores, in a chain of stores, we are discovering 100,000 people who are placing their first online order of their lives. So when I'm saying this, I'm getting goosebumps. But imagine we're actually speaking to them, and I actually went down. And what we're really doing is we kind of, there's a natural tendency. Like if I tell my office that I don't know how to use online, they're going to look down upon me, right? We said let's change it, and let's say that we would love to share a joy of making the first online order. So 100,000 people are discovering their first order online in our stores. So what we did is a simple thing. We made a small selfie counter. We actually have teams who can tell people to say, we explain to them what a wallet is, what a search engine like Google is, how do you kind of discover, this is our app, this is how you check out, and really make it very, very simple. They have to place a simple 101 rupee order 101 has a very notional value of being a sacred order. So they place a 101 rupees order, and then they take the selfie which says, I placed my first online order today in where Dibrugarh. So I think that's the first story, and I'm mighty excited because the whole world. If you discover how many people can discover online for the first time, I think I think they're going to fall in love with the brand. Is my thought.
Okay, so let me ask Ravi then. Ravi, a brand which is as old as Raymond. I'm sure people have got several generations have got their first suit stitched at Raymond. Tell us how tech is changing the retail stores, the back end, everything.
So I think very exciting for us. And when you look at Raymond, and I'll talk about this in terms of a mix of experience that we are going through in this whole omni-channel as an experience and still delivering the Raymond promise or the Raymond quality or the Raymond trust. Now, I think when we looked into this whole scheme of things of going omni-channel, what was critical for us was to first understand the whole piece. And we realized that, going online and e-commerce is very personal in terms of creating an influence. You probably understand the consumer one-to-one, and you create an influence for that consumer to come and engage with you. When you start looking at omnichannel, which is the stores for us has always been a local store marketing. It's about the product that you keep at the store in terms of bunch of customers who try and have preferences to those kind of products. And that's how each of these stores would differ. One store is not always same to the next store. So omnichannel is not, while it sounds very simple, it talks about, putting the store inventory on online, which is called the footfalls and the eyeballs out there. But when you think of it from an execution point of view, it's clearly very, very difficult and it's clearly very challenging. And, hyperscalers like Google Cloud clearly solved a lot of that problem for us. I mean, just to give you an example, in fashion category, we run the largest, CRM program, over 10 million customers now. And probably for us to probably take it from a offline or a conventional CRM to put it on a cloud-based CRM program, intermixing it with the kind of digital marketing that or influence that we are trying to do with the consumers out there and building up a CDP around it, which is the customer data platform. Now, it tells us the journey of a consumer, both what he does and past purchase behavior, what we know about him, versus, what he's today doing coming online onto our site and the preferences. Easier to go and do a personalized offer to that consumer. Now that makes it very, very simple when you look at technology that enables us. But now look at the other side of the complexity. On the other side, when somebody say probably, I've been able to find out that Sadashiv is going to like 120 counts of a black, Chairman collection suit length, and I'll be able to sell him through. I'll influence him, and out of impulse he'll purchase. My nearest store to him, probably at Breach Candy, is going to, service him. But when I know the patterns or the, the sizing of Sadashiv, and I have to now convert that to a digital pattern and go and give it to a tailor. Now, he's not that evolved in using a technology to cut that into the patterns without meeting Sadashiv. So earlier, so we had to solve the other end of the story as well. It was not only about the consumers, it was also saying that how do we give the great experience to Sadashiv that he completely goes on and vouch him, his next generation. Everybody says that my wedding suit has to come from Raymond because that's the experience we do. And that's the other piece which we started solving, saying how do you get technology solving the problem into the supply chain for the other part of it. And I think that's where we have come together and ensured that, you solve both sides, the consumer side as well as the other side who are servicing the consumer. It can be as simple as somebody from a store delivering to Sadashiv should understand that, he likes to take his delivery between 6 and 8. Now, how do you get to know that, and how do you make sure that you are able to capture, pass on that information and do that? So I think those are the kind of stuff that we have been doing. Clearly going online has done one thing to us. Our way of looking at stores has changed. When we used to have a store, it used to have boundaries. I think that those boundaries are becoming much larger. The store people are understanding my ability to service, like the point Sadashiv mentioned, that it's no longer a 5-kilometer radius around you. It can be a 15-kilometer radius because there's a probability a shipment partner or a delivery partner who can take care of it. So multiple things are coming together to help business. But at the end, when we look into it, and probably larger and stronger brands in each of these categories, probably I think have done better because they have been able to understand the consumer, their data, ride the journey with the consumer, holding the brand essence and deliver to that promise. I think that's where brands like Raymond, continue to be very, very strong. When we see the bounce back which is happening right now, we are ahead of our curve before pre-COVID levels in terms of the business, primarily because all these technologies, co-working, and ability to hybrid working, and simplicity, which is the key word. Sadashiv gave that word to all of us. Keeping it simple actually made it very, very easy for us to go to this journey, and it's exciting every day. I think we are just really enjoying it and loving it. We call it actually Raymond Reimagined. That's the internal theme that we call it, Raymond Reimagined.
Well, that's a big statement to make. Raymond being reimagined. Well, anyone who knows the brand or has experienced the brand will be able to relate to that.
I'm accepting Ravi's offer for buying his shoes.
No. Next time, I'm wondering if I'll have to get it, Raymond certified if I'm wearing a suit or something of that sort. So, Puneet, I wanted to come to you. So, in terms of the digitally native brands, and why I'm saying is all the direct-to-consumer brands, D2C as we call them often in India, do they have an inherent advantage because they start with some of these learnings, some of these processes, vis-a-vis what a Raymond would be or even a future group would be? How do you put them in a comparative situation? How would you put some of these D2C brands, which know their product very well, as you mentioned a little while ago?
Yeah, so I mean, see, they are evolving as well. Let me put it that way. But then the good thing about them is that possibly they have the crux of the story of how to approach their consumers. Okay, as I rightly said, they are, or rather, we've all talked about it, that they are available across platforms. They are available at places where the consumer wants them to be available, and they are able to build those connects. I also feel, there is a lot of personalization which they bring in. And as human beings, if we are starting off, if I end up starting off with my own enterprise, and if I'm trying to give it a story, and the story of how and what made me reach there, I think people tend to click to that story. People want to listen to that story, and that's where the commitment from the people also comes in. So I feel that there is a huge amount of learning which they have to do from a future group and the Raymonds in terms of bringing in the scale. At the same point in time, the Raymonds and the future groups and other large brands need to learn about their efficiency and speed of reaching to the consumer. So that's something which is going to evolve, and I think with the benefit which the larger brands have, which is the spread, and that's what we have talked about. It's all about putting those two things together to make sure that the market can be captured.
Okay, Akash, now for the collaborative part, why that is important, because while the interface to the consumer may be changing, may be evolving, the back end and, the process that Ravi mentioned about a little earlier, that needs to change as well. That sometimes needs to change faster given the reality, changing consumer preference, changing business situation. How has Urban Ladder grown on that? How has it evolved on that?
So I think, let's say one of the biggest challenges that you typically get into, right, is that if something is working for me today, right, why should I change that way of working, right? For something which might work better tomorrow, right? So this is the biggest issue that you always run into when you're trying to change an existing process, right? And with Urban Ladder, you have multiple entities existing, right? So you have a retail entity, you have a manufacturing entity, you have a last mile operations entity, and then you have the entire corporate organization. And all four of them comprise of very different set of people, and things that have worked for them are very different in nature, right? Processes, policies, collaboration that has worked for them. Some of them prefer physical touch points. Some of them are much comfortable technology. There's an average age in all of these four entities are very different. Right? So getting all of them together, I think, is a step-by-step process, right? So it is a classic digital transformation problem that I think most of the organization is going through. That you will have to be patient and show them the benefits with a smaller cohort, or do a beta testing in a particular processes with regards to how do you build processes and policies and leverage technology to collaborate better, right? But having said that, I think one thing which will always I don't think it can be 100% done away with, is the fact that there will be those businesses, right? There will be those set of people where you will necessarily needs to do an exception and continue to have those human connected processes for them to be able to do the best that they can. Right? For example, places like manufacturing, right? Supply chain, where the digital disruption typically happens also in a at a much later stage. If you look at in at least in the D2C brand that you mentioned, right, some of the organizations which are doing very, very well are the one who are bringing about certain amount of digital disruption, but that also they're doing primarily on the communication side of it, not really much on the entire processes side of it. So I think it is going to be a labored, persistent and patient approach, while keeping in mind the fact that there are certain set of people or certain set of function and processes where you, to the best of your abilities, you will try, but you will need to continue having those human processes in place. At least that's the approach that we are taking. Let's see how it works.
Okay, Ravi, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I think just wanted to add. I think what Akash said is actually very, very relevant. Clearly, think of it like a larger brand or larger organization. For them to adapt to a smaller kind of nimble startup behavior and starting those processes into the larger enterprise process is a challenge. And I think one way that we have solved it for us is clearly, again under the theme of, say, Raymond Reimagined, we are very, very clear that, when you start looking at a online or a e-commerce, which is a very personalized marketing approach, understanding consumer and servicing them, we probably do a lot of these beta testing and probably run them like a startup initiative. I mean, just to give you an example again on this, we've been debating and trying a concept called Uber of stylists. There are multiple, stylists which are there, styling services which are there. Now, for that to run from a Raymond setup and link to a store, the process for ability to be as fast and nimble like a startup would be very difficult. So, initiative it's called Shubharam, and Dragana, for your understanding, it's like blessings for good beginning associated with the weddings out there, and because we associate with that. So we actually reach out to everybody who's looking for weddings in terms of it, and target them quite style advisory or wedding services for their wedding dresses. Now that setup actually runs independent and does not intermingle, because we will learn for it. We will then probably go and compete with the way a D2C brand would probably go and offer those services. Take the advantages of what we have in our portfolio as an organization, our experience, but probably the process for that has to be very, very different from our conventional process. And I think that keeps the pace going, because it is also a transformation which let us know there are few things which a larger setup will find very difficult to match and deliver, versus small nimble startup can do much better. And I think it works well for us in that sense.
Puneet, yes, please.
Yeah, I think, I'm just trying to echo what Ravi is saying. Essentially incubating startups under the large brands is something which is happening. It will continue to happen. And I think that's the way to evolve. It's very difficult for bigger brands to really transform, bring in that change with the existing set of people and with the existing set of mindset. So what I've seen is that a lot of these brands are either acquiring smaller entities and giving them the space. They are not allowing them to merge with their DNAs, because if that happens, then you're actually just adding the team and nothing else. They remain independent. They do not operate of the same office. They work the way they want, and gradually bring them to a level wherein they see a change, okay, and they see a new way in which the same brand is now being looked at. You see that the brand which was not available on certain formats or in certain ways or on certain platforms has come in, and it has not come in just like a presence. It's like a real thump, and you see things change, and there's a massive acceptance. Typically what happens is, from a human psyche perspective, I feel as an individual, we would want to silo a brand in the way they operate. So I would say a brand X is great when you have an in-store experience, but they cannot be an online. Right? So you need to break those silos. And I think one of the ways of breaking those silos is possibly to incubate startups with it. And it really helps.
Okay, so that keeps... Ravi, I'll just come to you. Just give me a minute, because I wanted to go to Dragana and talk about... Because some of what Ravi, you and Puneet mentioned is about a cultural change that you need to bring about, in the way the organization is structured, in the way it goes about doing its business. So, Dragana, then, for some of these smaller startups which are being incubated within larger companies or some of the others, what are some of those tools that can enable retailers to maybe take quick decisions, collaborate smarter, work real time, hybrid work, and all that?
Do you mind if Ravi just gives his answer? Because I'm worried we're going to lose it because we're going down a path. And why don't we let Ravi make a point, and then I'll answer that question.
Yeah.
Okay, Ravi. So
thanks, Dragana. A quick one, actually. And this is more from seeking input and maybe at a later stage from all of us. What we are realizing, and I just would love everybody's input coming on this. It's a learning curve for us. Most of the larger brands actually were getting worried about share of business coming from online. And probably some of them started looking at saying that, for example, that fashion, they start saying that, it's growing at 35% and 30% of the business should be online. But when you break this down, we realize that it's always better to look at the share that you have in a particular channel or spend. Maybe a right way. Probably, I think we don't find an example where somebody has high share of business both on offline and online as a brand. People who clearly have an expertise on doing it offline have a significant share on offline, will have a contribution of business which may be probably 5%, 10%, 12%, but their share of online is very, very low. And it's vice versa. People who are actually very, very strong in terms of their business online and have a lion's share of their business coming from segment. And when you look at their share, and they may still have 30-40% of their business coming from offline, but when you look at the share of the segment that they are in, they're minor. So what we realize, that it's a learning curve, is probably your business mix will vary from somebody else because it's the expertise in your supply chain which is there. As long as you're relevant to your consumers with your offering, I think it works well. I think there's no right matrix to know that which is the right model, and everything will transform from the conventional model to a D2C or a D2C to a offline. So I think that's the learning, and that's the point I just thought I'll just bring in.
Sure. Puneet, go ahead, please.
No, I think we can. I was just trying to give a comment on what Ravi said, so maybe we can go to Dragana, and I'll put my comment later. Go ahead.
Okay, Dragana, please go ahead.
I think the culture question is somewhat relevant to the point just made, and that is that actually in the coming years, we're going to have the most diverse workforce that humanity has ever seen in terms of generations participating in this joint collaboration. And each generation has a different relationship with technology. Like millennials love to text. Gen Z, interestingly enough, like FaceTime, like through video. Gen X, like real FaceTime, as do boomers and so on. So how do you get all of these people with very diverse comfort levels with different types of technologies to work together and in unison and deliver what they need? So there has to be a level of recognition, I think, and empathy for these preferences. There also has to be a very strong change management program put in place to help everyone understand why something is being offered to them as a tool. And also the tool should be simple enough that, it's actually something that people want to adopt. And one of my colleagues who runs our design thinking workshops, he uses this really great image of Victoria train station in Australia from the 90s. And he asks people, what do you see here? And of course, people point out nobody has phones. And he's like, I had to meet my friends there, and we would tell each other, okay, if I don't show up for 20 minutes, keep waiting. And then he shows a picture of 16 years later, and there's people crossing the road, and they're all on their phones. So he said, look, people say they were not good at adopting new things, but he said that's not true. It's actually the ease of the new thing and the convenience that it gives you and how it enriches your experience in your life is what makes you want to adopt something. So keeping that in mind is really important. Now, in Google, the culture of Google is very unique and very interesting. And I think it's been in many case studies that in Google, we have a thing called psychological safety that we actually credit as one of the key reasons why our teams are highly performing. And that is that people feel comfortable to share their thoughts and opinions regardless of what level in the organization they are. They also feel comfortable failing. And, because without people being comfortable to share their thoughts, you will not get the insights that you need from diverse perspectives. And if you don't empower people to take action and not crucify them if they fail, then they will take action and try. And more so than not, because you hire great people, they're actually going to do some really great things. So having that culture is really important also, that to combine it with the technology that we have. As I mentioned, like, for example, our documents can be highly accessible. There has to be a level of trust in there. Now, of course, we can put all kinds of security admin features in the back to prevent those who should not be going in there. But the point is that culture of trust and innovation is really, really key. So we built Google Workspace to enable us, to give us an ability to move quickly, to innovate quickly, and to be original and unique. So we give that to our customers as well. But we always tell them, don't use Google Workspace in the way you use your old tools, because it's almost like trying to enter a car through the window because there is a window and you're used to entering something through the window. You use the features that you get and take that culture that we built into the tool to help you transform faster and move as quickly as Google does. So I guess my point is that in all of these workforce transformations, technology is not enough, really. Like, these projects have to be done together between various departments. And the most common ones tend to be HR and IT. But then you also have facilities, whether they're facilities for your office, for your knowledge workers, or they're facilities in your factory or your warehouse for your frontline workers. And you need to take your field services people who have workforce all over the city or the country, and look at their needs in specifically. So there's so many opportunities for us to introduce technology, but it has to be introduced in a context of that person and persona, and it has to be introduced also with that culture of trust and respect and empathy. Because if you're trying to arm wrestle somebody into something, usually those approaches don't work very well, and those investments don't succeed. So to get an ROI, it's really important to get that buy-in from your from your internal customer, if it's the employee or external customer. It doesn't matter. The point is people need to accept, adopt, and then you get the ROI.
Okay. So before I come to you, Puneet, just to mention for everyone watching us, just make sure, in case such an interesting conversation, so in case you want to ask any questions, please put them in the comments box, and we'll try and get the experts to get their answers for your questions. So we'll wait to hear from you on the questions as well. Puneet, please make your...
So I was just trying to hear what Dragana said and Ravi said, so it's all about ease, simplicity, and possibly definition of online. So I mean, I'm of the view that the platform is a must to have, so that from a consumer's standpoint, it shows that you exist. Okay. Whereas the experience will online, especially for the wedding collections Ravi is talking about. I go online, I like something, I put it in my cart, and I leave it there. And now I'm going to the store. Is there a way by which we can simply transition that experience of online in store and recall the cart while the customer is walked in, and possibly start the conversation from there? Because then in that case, you know the name of the customer, which is Puneet. He has gone online, he has seen something, he's coming into the store. If you address me as Puneet and you refer the cart, then I think it's a short deal which is coming your way. And the transition moves from there. Now, whether this is an online sales or an offline sales is something which can be debated around. But then the whole idea of being available across platforms is to make sure that the customer is able to connect to you, the customer is able to resonate your thoughts and the way you are treating or personalizing the consumer and their behavior. Whereas I kind of agree, Ravi, completely that defining whether the percentage of sale should be X on online and Y as offline is difficult, and it is completely business to business. and it will evolve. I think if we really look at it, these conversations which we are doing on this panel has never happened like this before COVID. We've all been sitting in an auditorium or in a place wherein we do these conversations, and it has evolved. And I see that it will keep evolving. The way the customer wants to connect, the way the brand reaches out, and whether we call online and offline, or whether we call omnichannel, it's a perspective, and it is likely to change.
Okay, so what have been, so I asked a little bit about collaboration. So I'd like to understand also from such an experienced set of people on the biggest changes, while the changes that you mentioned in terms of the processes, in terms of the way you've responded to customer needs. What are some of those biggest changes that you could be looking as we look at now, 2020 and 21, and hopefully we won't have another year like the two before, nearly 2 years that have gone. What could 2022 hold as far as reaching out to the consumer and driving the business processes? What could be expected for your businesses? If you can go first, Akash.
I think for us, we believe 2022 will fundamentally be more about reaching out to the customer through a physical availability, because we are already there digitally, right? And I think that merger of experience will happen over the years, right? But for example, for Sadashiv or Ravi, it is the journey is other way around. For us, it is digital to physical. For them, it is physical to digital. So I think that's what it is going to be about for the next few years. And over a period of time, I think till it becomes a seamless experience, I think it will continue to be our journey to be more out there for the customer, because there's a large set of customers who still create physical touch point. And we have seen that work brilliantly for us over the last I would say 4 odd years. And while, of course, continue to leverage technology to personalize the experience, like Sadashiv said, somebody's giving us their time, you need to value it and make it worth their while. So that's what 2022 will be about us.
Okay, Sadashiv, for you, because I'm still awed by that 27 million number. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah, but I'm sorry if I used it in a boastful manner. That was
no, not at all. But the sheer, it tells you about the reach and the number of people you are listening to possibly.
Yeah. So I'm possibly going to touch upon that, I think, and maybe our reality is a little different from what Puneet mentioned, and which is having separate teams, etc., etc. I don't think we had an option to have a separate team, because we were really running large operations, so we had to see it differently. And the way I put it to my teams is that prior to lockdown, I was watching a movie a week. I'm a movie buff. During the lockdown, the movie halls shut, so I started watching a movie a week on OTT. Now that the movie halls are opened again, as long as I'm watching at least 5 to 6 movies a month, it's good. And that's what is really happening. And I'm going to watch my movie in the hall. I'm also going to watch a movie in thing. So the big stuff which I told, and that has a influence on the organizational design and processes, is that it doesn't matter where the customer is buying. It's a channel, whatever you want to call it. It's a medium, it's a platform. But I think that at the end of it, in a country like ours, which I still believe is severely underpenetrated, and it's a young, thriving customer base which is going to spend more. I see a lot of youngsters. I'm the only oldie in my office, and they are spending. So how do you make sure that whatever it is, whether it's a store business or online business, how are you going to create extra consumption? And the movie example is the best example. It's really happened in my life. After the lockdown is opened up again, I'm watching more movies than what I was watching earlier. Sometime on my phone and sometime on the screen. So I think that's the single place. So we frankly did not have a luxury to say, let's create 2 teams. It was 1 team. And to go to your customer base of 27 million, I think hence I don't know who mentioned it, either Puneet or Akash mentioned it. I think that's a reality for us today. While we are not exactly calling out Puneet, welcome to our store, but we frankly kind of keeping a watch on saying, what did Puneet miss in his store transaction which he got in his online, and vice versa, and trying to craft those offers. I think that's where the 27 million is coming out in a big way. But back to your question, I think really consumption, delta consumption is what is on our mind. The second is really to make sure that we mainstream, and the example which I told you of we call it Project Gold internally, where we are getting 100,000 people make their first online order online with us. I think that's going to be on our mind to mainstream it. And lastly, I think, and that's where Dragana can come and really help us. I think listening has now become a real-time activity, and I'm using listening very loosely. Everything, every transaction, whether I see it on the app or whether I go to my store, I need to listen. And possibly some of the friction areas is languages. We are a country of various languages. What a customer calls a brinjal in some part of the country is very different than what a customer calls a brinjal in another part of the country. And at times we often listen very differently. Like I'm sure I don't know what Ravi is wearing is a blazer, is a suit, and maybe some other things in many other markets. How do we listen and make really programs out of it? I think that to us is in the mind. So I would say nudging consumption, making sure that real-time listening happens and we really listen to the voice of the last customer, and really mainstreaming as many customers as we can. And I'm using the word mainstreaming not in a condescending way, but really getting people onboarded. We don't care whether they shop in store or we shop in online, because I think they are the gods and the kings and the queens. I think our job is to say we are available the way Puneet explained. We are available both places. Help us increase consumption a bit, because that's what your journey is about.
Okay, so since you mentioned the number of languages, Sadashiv, I'm just reminded, according to the 2011 census, Dragana, India had about 1,700 languages, and not just full-fledged languages, but the number of dialects that people spoke. So 1,700. So there might be some work to do, I guess, in the future in case.
And I bet all of us speak a different language on the screen here right now. And spouses as well.
Yeah, so that also matters. Yeah, exactly. So Ravi, what's priority for 2022, and in terms of how does it change you as the workplace?
Great. So I think before I go to that, I think, and I'm speaking on behalf of Dragana because I use that algorithm that Google has, which is the NLP AI. I think it's extremely powerful. Probably it solves a lot of challenge for us when we go online in terms of whether somebody writes it a blazer, a jacket, a coat, a suit, whatever they write, that algorithm helps us take the customer to the product. So, and I think technology is helping all of us. So, but yeah, a lot of but coming back to us in terms of what Raymond, the priority, like we said, it's actually pretty simple for us that the consumer experience, both online and offline, has to be superlative to a Raymond benchmark. And to do that, probably a significant amount of work goes for us in the master data management, the MDM that we call it internally, and which probably taking away just from a conventional CRM to a CDP kind of a platform of understanding consumer behavior just beyond them on the stores and also what they're doing online, and trying to extract information from that to build onto their experience. Now, it sounds simple, but from a point of view of ability to make a personalized offer for a consumer and give the same experience whether he comes to the store, because that requires a lot of digitization efforts to be done at the store. So, for example, the stores need to have those 3D avatars, which are today, for example, available on My Raymond, where you can go and design your, say, a shirt or a jacket yourself. The same thing has to be an experience into the store, but it has to be different for each customer. So I think that's a big challenge that we are looking for us. It's almost like a 12 to 18 month journey for us to build that foundation background and use technology to service consumers better on platform. That's what we are working to bring it together.
So Dragana, that's 1,700. I guess that number will come to you time and again as the team works with Indian companies for sure. What is the possibility, or can you explain the challenges for any company which is looking to do some of that work? Make sure that they're listening smartly. What could they do and how could they go about doing it? If you can also share some best practices from any of the APAC countries that you may have tracked.
Wow. So the listening part, I think a lot of people get a little creeped out if they think they're being, listened on. Now, when people do offer insights about them, it's really key to notice, right? So it's making sure that we take the right information in the context that it's beneficial, right? So that multi-channel integration that you were talking about earlier is really key, especially if you're looking at your market. understanding what it is in the context that needs to be understood is another thing. And this is something that we always say is when we design the search engine, if a person asking couldn't type or couldn't spell, that was our problem. If they couldn't express their question properly, that was also our problem. So taking on that mindset of really putting together something that is going to give you the most complete 360-degree perspective on the information you're gathering, and then using that to really offer that next generation customer or employee experience is really, really key within the regulation, within the privacy, within the data compliance. Of course, that's always also another key. So integrating is really, I think, a great opportunity in the right context. And so it's going to be something that, I look at some of these futuristic videos of technologies, and there were times when I presented them at different events and I would make a statement that those things are coming in 15 to 20 years. And I was challenged. People said, do you really think that's it? And I said, well, actually, no, you can do that today. But things that are missing are some of the foundation, also appetite for risk, the imagination, and funding, right? Because some of that stuff needs to sort of come together and it's not as easy to put together. So that's why we do these design thinking workshops for our customers, to give them a chance to really imagine and then discuss what is the viability of what they imagine. But really go ahead and imagine something before you even think about limiting. Like if you had all the resources in the world, what is it that you think your customers or your employees want, and then see how you can make that happen. It's almost like going back to the Henry Ford statement. If he just listened to what people wanted, he'd give them more horses. But he actually took that next step of imagining something that didn't exist so that he can produce a car.
Okay, so Puneet, in terms of the priorities, what should be the top priority for companies which are for largely the retail leaders, and how can the leaders of tomorrow, and I'm going to ask Sadashiv and others to also talk about it, how can the leaders drive that change for 2022?
See, I think it is extremely important for you to know at what stage of business are you in. There is so much of technology available. You can go all over the place. You can start investing in every single thing which is available. The good thing or the fortunate thing for India has been that India has always been the technology hub, right? And it was all about we thinking and it was made available. So if you look at all these technologies, they were made available in the last 18 months and were being adapted. I think the important thing over here for all the retailers would be to bring in controls, right? Because at this point in time, we've gone all over the place by bringing in those sets of technologies. Are they really amalgamated? Are they really seamless? Are they giving that experience? Is something which is very, very crucial. And I think next year should be a lot about that. It should be about bringing in some method to this madness and to make sure that to figure out rather how much is too much, right? So, and you cannot be endless about investing. You need to know at what stage of growth are you in, and basis that, look at things which will help you evolve or help you grow further. I think that's something which is coming out to be absolutely imperative in my thought.
Sadashiv, in terms of leadership priorities, what should 2022 look like? And one thing I'd just like to mention here, in the Indian context, and Dragana, this is important because India's privacy laws are expected to be in place, hopefully, in the near future. How does that impinge on some of the activities that retailers might want to undertake?
Sure. So I think I'll first borrow what Dragana said. I think, and it's so relevant. Imagination will be on our mind, and I think it's important because there are times when we have seen a setup of retail where there were certain restrictions, and today I think many of those restrictions don't exist. So imagination will surely be, and I'm borrowing on what the point she raised. Second is, I would say, to make this change, how do we treat our staff and our teams as customers themselves? Because if you have changed the way you're watching movies, and if you've changed at your home that you're going to wish your family, or if you've changed the way you're going to be celebrating a wedding, then I think for them to adapt and change at workplace is much easier. So how do we realize them as customers? How do we make them share their stories of customers and bring that out? I think that's the second thing which I would do. Third, and I'm possibly building on an earlier point when you mentioned collaboration. To me, collaboration, if you really see the life of a retailer, it's like a sinusoidal wave which is going here and there. And analytically, one would call it a lot of noise. I wouldn't see it that way. I think what the priority is to really remove what is constant out of it. And there will be a constant wave out of it, which is really the basis for forecasting to vendors. It's a way to kind of plan for marketing. So you remove that. What really gets left behind is the highs and lows of retail. At least from a hypermarket, that's what we see, the highs and lows. I think the priority, therefore, is to say there is a common part, which we call core. In fashion, we call it core. We call it various terms, but every retailer will have a different term. Identifying that core and saying that becomes the backbone for collaboration. The rest of it, which are typically people who dismiss as noise, are really the highs and lows. How do you make the organization agile? And how do we have reviews which are non-linear? I think we are used to a very linear structure of reviews. We are increasingly encouraging people to say, in the review, we don't want any past data. We just don't want any past data. At best, you can quote yesterday's data, but don't let us tell us what happened last week and last year it doesn't matter really. So let's look at best what happened yesterday to really take stock whether there are any issues. And to Dragana's point, imagine what the scenario would be and where we are going to be. So I think these are a few things on our mind. Imagination, making things that we remove the core and allow it for collaboration, encouraging non-linearity, and lastly, looking at staff as customers. They are going through a huge change. As long as they're able to bring their persona back to the workplace, I think we are home.
Akash, in terms of people, how could they be the Okay, Dragana, I'll just come to you. Let me finish the question with Akash. In terms of the way people could be driving 2022, how could the leadership be driving them to be the change, as they say, that you want to see?
Let's just hear Dragana's point. I think that
Okay. Dragana?
Okay. I just wanted to point out one thing is, and you probably have all read in the paper that this year we've had more open jobs around the world, especially in the US, than ever before. They call it the big resignation. Some call it the big reshuffle. So this race for talent and the war for talent is going to become much more fierce. And with the tech skill set in demand, and the fact that actually I read this report that in 2024, so that's only 2 years from now, in the US, there's going to be a gap of new grad technology jobs that are open from the graduating class in the amount of 46% will only be filled. So 56% or something to the tune of over 1 million jobs will not be filled. What that means is not that the US is going to open their borders and import all of these tech savvy people. No, I mean, COVID has really democratized everything. And so now these MNCs, these large organizations that have specific ways of working, specific cultures that are more human friendly, that are more empathetic, they will come after international workforce. And they will allow people to stay where they are and just continue to use their, creativity, their knowledge, their talent. So how are the companies that are local to the market going to compete with that is something that really needs to be considered. So that's just one point I wanted to make because it's really interesting and I think it's 100% spot on.
Okay, Akash. So how will the people change 2022 for the company, Urban Ladder?
I think what we have already started seeing, right? I think every way that you had imagined the workplace to be, right, will need to be rethought of, right? All your interactions, all your ways of working, I think we have already seen those things change, and I think it will continue to evolve, right? I think two things which are fundamentally important as part of leadership who is driving those things. I think one of them is patience. Because your old ways of working will get challenged, and it is in your favor to be patient about it and to see this through, right? And second is, I think, a lot of empathy, because like I think some of people were mentioning, right, your workforce is going to comprise of people with various hugely different backgrounds, right, both economically, education, age, so on and so forth. And technology has multiple phases, right? Me messaging is also technology, me WhatsApping is also technology, and me using some sort of a video app is also technology, right? And all of us are different, comfortable with different things of it. Right? How do you ensure that all of these coexist, right, and give it its own time to settle down? I think it's going to be key. So the next entire year is about patience, till things settle down in your own way to figure out where you are, and then take it up from there.
Well, hope patience doesn't go unrewarded. Ravi, we've got the human side of the story, we've got the leaders side of the story in terms of digital systems, in terms of tech applications. How will 2022 change Raymond?
I think phenomenal shift. You'll start seeing a significant amount of use of technology, like mixed reality coming in terms of experience in store, or whether it's in terms of e-commerce. You start seeing a lot of technologies which is about personalization and recommendation coming on consumer behavior shift that's coming up there. And the last one is all about the workforce improvement technology, probably for collaboration. Because I think the other two previous two, in terms of people and leadership, I think one clear mandate for us, and what Dragana mentioned, has been that we really have to invest a lot into our people for this Raymond reimagined journey. Because it is these people who are going to probably build that culture of trust, innovation, and drive that change. So how do you create an environment where they feel much more comfortable in terms of failing, trying and failing, because that's going to be very, very relevant. And how do you make sure the failures don't cost to the business? Is the responsibility of the business leaders to make sure you safeguard those failures are not expensive, and yet probably do those. So probably those are the things. But yes, on the tech side, you can well imagine Raymond to be probably leading some kind of big things in coming few months. You can get a glimpse of it onto our website right now. But I can assure you, probably 12 months down the line, you want your best fitted suit, or you want the best fitted fashion advice recommendation. It is coming to you from Raymond in a technology way, for sure. I mean, we are pretty advanced on that right now.
Okay, so the men can certainly look forward to quite a bit. Thanks so much, Ravi, for that input. We just about run out of time. It's such an interesting conversation. Dragana, can I request you for a final word, please?
Well, I wanted to thank everyone on this panel, as well as our audience who joined us on Friday afternoon. It's been a long week for everyone, and thank you so much for making this such an interesting conversation that the time just flew by. The key points that were stated here, I think collectively, were very wise and very interesting. And so it'd be great to be able to continue this discussion. If you have any further, questions, insights you'd like to share. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I believe the rest of you are on LinkedIn as well. It'd be great to connect and keep the conversation going. But we also have, like I mentioned, a number of great people in India. Like I have 4 people in India that are on my team who are experts in communication and collaboration. We offer those design thinking workshops. We work with the leadership teams as well as CISOs to help them understand the benefit of cloud collaboration and actual inherent security of it. So from that point of view, it's been really great. And like I said, retail industry is so interesting because it's not just the shop and the window of the shop and the online presence. There's so much in that back end. There's logistics, there's supply chain, there's manufacturing, and all kinds of other collaboration with various partners and suppliers. So the actual business of retail, it almost brings everything together. And so it's always really interesting to work with our customers that have those challenges. So thank you very much, Ashu, for hosting this. It's been really great. And I wish you all a phenomenal weekend.
Okay, thanks so much, Dragana. Thanks. And since we spoke about simplicity, several times this word came about, I'd like to just add one line before I close. Add technology. We're talking in the context of the retail industry. Add technology subtract the complexity, divide the work and processes, and hopefully for businesses, start multiplying. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.